to welcome in ESPN analyst, former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky, as we do every Tuesday. And Dan's segment brought to you by Ellicott Hotels. Fans, round up your family, friends, or coworkers for a fantastic game day experience at 500 Pearl. Reserve your pack and book your group event today at 500pearlbuffalo.com. I want to do that for Wild Card Weekend, Bills versus Steelers. Dan, hope you're doing well. Let's begin with Week 18 and the win over the Dolphins. Not a pretty first half. Costing themselves some points in the red zone with some turnovers in the end zone. I don't know where you come down on that, but Josh, seemed to be a little flustered by, some zero blitzes. Maybe some of his receivers didn't break hot quick enough and recognize themselves as hot. I mean, there's probably always a number of factors in those kinds of situations. But what did you take away from the early red zone struggles for a team that came into the game number one in the red zone?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. There was you never know when you're on the outside. Is it like lack of plan or lack of execution? No, I don't want to say you never know, but because sometimes you could watch a quarterback and see, or do they realize it? You could just watch their body language and the urgency they have when they get the ball. And I do think, like on the interception, Josh's first interception, it does look like he's aware, oh my gosh, I'm getting all out pressure. And he kind of peeks to his right. And, I don't know if the route concept was one that gave him like the proper or necessary answer for zero. And then Gabe, he snaps back and he makes a panic throw to Gabe. And it certainly didn't feel like Gabe was running his route with the urgency of knowing, okay, Josh has got to get the ball out of his hands. Like, that's what you really want. Josh should never be holding on to that ball, fading away, 2.5 seconds into the play and still throwing a ball to a guy with his back to him. There has to be a little more sudden urgency by everybody. I'm not absolving. This was a panic decision by Josh, but more of an urgency and awareness, specifically in that case of, kind of what was necessary going down. So, that's the big takeaway. And Josh, Chris, Josh was unsettled for the whole first half. You could just see it in his eyes. You could see it on the deep ball to Steph that should be a 95-plus yard touchdown. He was just so sped up. We all know he gets like that at times. The adrenaline for him gets flowing. But it was good to see him settle down in the second half physically.
What else kind of changed besides Josh's demeanor and the kind of the as you say, the body language calmness that you saw a little bit more of in the second half? What else changed for that? I know, Gabe Davis went out and he started to spread the football around. I mean, there were 8 guys who caught a pass in that game. Nobody had more than one incompletion thrown to them. What about that, other than Josh and his demeanor, perhaps? What else changed?
Yeah, Steve, candidly, Miami had no choice really but to start playing more man coverage than they wanted to. That's not necessarily who they are. And I thought that Joe Brady and Josh and the offense did a good job of adjusting to that. When they get on that drive that eventually becomes the Dawson Knox touchdown, there's 3 or 4 consecutive plays where it's man coverage and they dial up the right kind of rub route or pick route. It's the ball down the sideline to Kincaid when he's getting covered by Ingram. That's advantage Buffalo. And then it's the rail shot off the bubble screen pump that they connect on. And then obviously the Dawson touchdown is the motion and they switch release it and that safety hangs inside. So I think, again, Josh settling down and being a little bit completion driven was big. And then when Miami declared like, hey, we got to play some man coverage, they stopped playing zero, which was good because once Josh in the second half hit Dalton on a quick little crosser versus zero for a first down, automatically Miami went away from it. And so I think that's another declaration of you have a plan for the pressure. Quarterback settles down a little bit and delivers the football. And then when they got man, they had the right concepts for it.
Spinning it forward to the Steelers, Dan, obviously the Pittsburgh offense has gone through even more dramatic change than the Bills. Both teams changed coordinators, but Pittsburgh is now on their third quarterback in Mason Rudolph, veteran player, has been there. What would you say are some of the changes for the better to the functionality of Pittsburgh's offense with those respective changes?
Yeah, so I just called their Week 18 game at Baltimore when it was a must win. Very simply, the number one thing they've done is they've stopped going side to side as an offense, and they decided to simplify and just go, we're going to go right at you. They're not going to try to confuse you. They're not going to try to trick you. They're going to put 3 tight ends on the field so often. They're more often than not going to have 2 tight ends on the field, and they're going to run basically 2 to 3 run plays. One of the run plays is going to be duo, where they'll get 3 tight ends on the field. They're going to get multiple double teams. And Chris, I tell you this, if you were going to ask me what is going to be one of the, if not the most important things for this Buffalo defense versus Pittsburgh's offense, all 11 have got to be ready to tackle. Because Pittsburgh's number one goal right now in their run game is to get the ball to the secondary. They don't care if it's one-on-one at the line of scrimmage with a safety or a corner. That's all they want to do in their run game. Warren is, and I know you guys are popping clips right now of their pass game. I want to get to that, but Warren has become like their dynamic guy. You're going to have to tackle Najee Harris really well. So you're not going to get confused. A little bit more motion, a little bit more play action. They've tied that stuff together. Mason Rudolph hasn't given the ball away. They have one goal: keep the game close. And then if the game's close, they want to get a big play. They want to get Deontay Johnson or Pickens or Freiermuth, go make a big play. And they do a very good job of that recently.
How close to the vest do they play it offensively? I mean, you would think in an all-or-nothing game, well, they were in one last week against the Baltimore Ravens backups, but in a game like this in Buffalo, I mean, this is when you see, the reverse pass or the backward pass, double pass, that kind of stuff. Once in a while, that menu, and I said this earlier, that menu gets short really quick. You may see 1 or 2 of those plays, but ultimately, if they get into a game where it's a 2-possession game where they've got to score twice, that's when they can't really. Yeah, it's tough for them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe so, but I don't know if it'll change without TJ Watt. Obviously TJ is the most important person on the field for them, and he's won 2 games for them this year. I don't know how many people in football can say that. Maybe Deron Bland and Miles. So I don't know if it changes because they have such great faith and defensively. In Buffalo's offense in comparison to Pittsburgh's defense, they don't care about yards. Josh is not going to get confused by coverage much. They'll give you a little bit of late rotation, Steve. They want to play cover 3. And how many different ways can they play cover 3? This is one of those games. Josh, get the ball out. Don't try and hold it because Highsmith can still rush. Herbig can still rush. Keanu Benton can still rush. Get the ball out. Get completions. See the overlap corner. Here's where they're great. Red zone defense takeaways. I think they're second in the NFL getting turnovers in the red zone, let alone forcing field goals. I think the middle of the field can be a big pass game opportunity for them, Buffalo. And so, yeah, if you jump on them, Steve, they're just not that's not who they want to be. They don't want to be schematically overly creative. They don't want to be schematically overly chasing big plays. They want to go after you. They want to force you to play sound, technically fundamental football and tackle well on the perimeter.
So let's talk a little bit more about working that middle of the field offensively for Buffalo, because I think Kincaid and Shakir have emerged in an encouraging way here down the stretch, particularly on this 5-game win streak. Shakir, in particular, in the last 4 games in which he has been targeted, he has a 100% catch rate. Now, I realize there are more high percentage throws with Shakir than, say, somebody like a Gabe Davis, but still in all, how much of positive reinforcement is that for someone like Josh to stay within the structure of the offense and take what the defense gives him with 2 weapons like that over the middle of the field to utilize in the intermediate area?
Chris, it's massive. And it's really 2 things that stand out with Shakir. If you've watched kind of even last year and then his growth and development this year, and you're seeing some shots over the middle field, 2 things that he's doing really well. Number 1, when he gets to the top of his routes, whether it's man or zone, like if it's man, he's doing a great job of separating at the top of his route. He's not winning outrageously at the line of scrimmage, but he's doing a really nice job of separating just enough at the top. The second thing, and I think this is probably the most important thing, is he is very loud with his body language. Steve, you know this. Like, he's very loud with his body language. Am I running full speed away from somebody? How sharp I'm coming downhill versus on a route? Am I going to sit or throttle or be boring in a zone? And Josh, you know, when you hear that saying in football, like, the quarterback has great confidence in him. Well, where does that confidence come? That's where the confidence that Josh has in him right now is. He's doing those two things really well. Obviously, Dalton mismatches, the length that he can play with over the field. He's got great feel, you know, and so I think those two guys, and this doesn't have to be a game, Chris, where it's like dink and dunk. You know, there are going to be moments where Josh has got to get the ball out and just take a completion, and but there are going to be plenty of opportunities in the 14 to 18 to 22 yard range, you know, in between the top of the numbers and really to the hash, where they can make some hay with some explosive plays.
Give us a quick characterization of this Pittsburgh defense, because, you know, we know Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's been in and out of line. He may be back in. And the defensive backs, and give us a kind of a rundown of what their personality is. Certainly TJ Watt changes that personality a little, but what have they been?
Yeah, they really wanted to be a 4-down team with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith as the guys that had tremendous get-off, obviously advantage when you're home, Buffalo, and then not doing that. I think Josh's cadence has to be huge this week, because both TJ and Highsmith are great with their get-off. They pay attention. They listen to the words that you use. They know what live words are and aren't. So, like, you got to be really good with your cadence this week of Josh. But that's what they want it to be. They've been beat up at linebacker health-wise, and so they're rotating a bunch of guys in. They've got guys that they want to put in versus either run personnels or run situations. So take advantage of that if you can. Then they have guys that they want to put, like a Miles Jack. They want him in on passing formations, personnels, or situations. Take advantage of that. Patrick Peterson, who's going to be a, you know, potential Hall of Famer, is playing free safety a little bit for them now. Obviously, an incredible career. It still looks like he's adjusting to that, how he plays in the middle of the field, tackling in the middle of the field. Joey Porter Jr., I would not be surprised if he, you know, shadows Steph a lot. He's a very physical player, going to be very, very, very good. He's already pretty darn good. I don't want to make this defense sound like world beaters. They're solid, and that's with TJ. I think that if Buffalo plays the way that they did in the second half and settled and don't hurt themselves, they should have a lot of success.
And then last one from me, Dan. Since week 10, the Bills are averaging about 35 carries per game. It leads the league. Their success in the run game has kind of slid back to the pack the last couple of weeks. This, you know, Pittsburgh historically, you'd say, well, it's tough to run on Pittsburgh, but you look at the numbers and they say otherwise. I mean, they're 19th against the run. Are they a middle of the pack run defense that the Bills should have some opportunities against? Or
Yes.
are they capable of rising up and maybe neutralizing that and forcing Buffalo to be one-dimensional?
No, they're middle of the pack. And you're doing this. TJ Watt is not just a sack guy either. He's great against the run. Cam Hayward, a stalwart. He's a little banged up. He's been hurt all year. Again, Keanu Benton, who's a rookie out of Wisconsin's good player. The run game will matter, and the efficiency of their offense is going to matter. This is very simple for me. This team in Pittsburgh, you tip your hat to them. Unbelievable that they are in, and the job that Mike Tomlin has done. If you don't hold the ball as a passer, and if you don't become reckless with the ball in the red zone, this defense isn't capable of holding this offense down. This is a mature game by everybody on this offense. It's a maturity game. You go out, you do what you have to do, mix your personnels. You could run or pass, be completion driven. As long as Josh isn't careless with the football, and as long as they're not, because Minkah Fitzpatrick, if he plays, or Eric Rowe, the one thing, Chris, that this defense is really good at, punching the ball out. They come in with the Peanut Tillman punch. If I was Buffalo's coaches all week, that's what we're stressing. So again, I don't want to minimize them. They're an NFL defense. It's in the playoffs, but if you don't give them stuff, they're not good enough to stop this offense.
Is there a percentage you can attach to T.J. Watt? If they're 100% with T.J. Watt in there, what are they without him?
Steve, I would say, especially if Minka doesn't play,
right,
50.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah.
He's defensive player of the year. If he's not, he's second, third. So he's unbelievable.
Yeah. They certainly did catch a break there. There's no question about that. Dan, thanks as always for the time. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.